All right, everyone, it's been an interesting time in the wake of Parkland because, of course, basically the entire nation has to have a debate driven by people who they're posing as though they know something extra because they were part of a tragedy, and they're almost at this point getting attention off of the dead classmates that they have. I don't really think that that's a great thing to do. It seems a little bit in your face and holier than thou. A little bit opportunist, but again, that's just me. It's just my popular opinion, I suppose. But the Broward County sheriff's deputies that were on scene at the time, it turns out it wasn't just one dude who's like, I guess, flees the school and doesn't do anything to stop the incident. Turns out there are 4 dudes there, 4 deputies in total, none of which actually did anything. The original, the one posted in the school has been fired, I guess, or suspended without pay or whatever, and won't be working in that position, I would hazard a guess again. We'll have to go be the meter maid or something. Have to be the bike cop, the ultimate insult maybe. He doesn't get a car anymore to ride around in. He has to ride on a motor scooter and check to make sure that people aren't double parked. But there were at least 3 other deputies on scene, and I guess what was said on CNN, actually, by the police chief there was, they're not suspended yet because we're not exactly sure. They may have been hearing something differently through the radio. So, you can't punish them. They may have thought that they were being ordered to, stay outside or something. But can I just submit for everybody my thoughts on this? One of the most common arguments that's made by advocates of disarmament is, hey, just call the cops. They'll defend you. You'll be fine. Here we have an instance where a police deputy, someone who was charged with defending a very significant location full of minors, full of children, totally failed, total dereliction of duty, apparently runs off or at the very least is cowering and refuses to confront the shooter. We have a situation where, possibly due to lack of communication or due to dereliction, whichever, it doesn't matter, end result is the same. Several other armed individuals were on scene too and capable of stopping the shooter and did nothing as well. We have a situation where the centralized response necessary to liquidate the shooter was not so badly botched he was caught walking down the street. Wasn't even on school grounds anymore. He's just walking down the street when he gets apprehended. Kills a bunch of people and then just wanders off. Wonderful. So you're saying that people should reasonably expect, under circumstances like this that occasionally happen, despite polling which shows that most cops want an armed citizenry because they are confident that it helps them occasionally stop a crime, like, hey, if we show up and the shooter's already been shot, it makes our job a lot easier. Hopefully we get to go home to our families and we don't have a bullet hole in our neck or something. So they did polling on that. I think, I can't remember what year it was from. I think it was 2012, if I remember correctly. And it was overwhelming that they supported the idea of an armed citizenry and opposed any additional gun control, I think, other than expanded background checks, which is what the general population already accepts. I oppose it, but, it's not quite as draconian to check if someone's a felon, not quite as draconian as saying, okay, well, you can only have a pea shooter or something. But you're saying, people who are anti-gun, that the rest of us, some of us knowing how to use a firearm in self-defense if necessary, should scrap those. It's like, well, that's bad mojo. Now, these other dudes with guns, though, that's okay, and we can totally rely upon them. The national response time when you call the police is about 20 minutes. That is more than enough time for a person to break down your door and stab you in the neck or shoot you. They're a criminal, so they might have a gun. If you don't, then pity for you. You're probably not going to survive the encounter. At the very least, if they're just holding you at gunpoint hoping they don't have to squeeze the trigger, well, they've definitely gotten away with their crime. You can give the description to police. It's not going to help you recoup your losses in all cases. Well, yeah, they stole my silver play button. It wasn't insured, so, I'm up shit creek without a paddle. Good luck finding it now. They probably melted it down thinking it was real silver. That would be a funny one. Shit, no, we just lost thousands of dollars. I thought it was real and stuff. No, I would say we can't rely upon just a centralized response. The whole concept, for instance, of the Second Amendment, early on, the militia referred to in the Second Amendment is quite literally just the civilian population able to muster and bear arms in national defense. Literally, if you're overthrowing a tyrant, if a foreign army has invaded, some civil disturbance, whatever happens, what's happened is that private citizens who own their own firearms and also own the means of producing ammunition and guns, literally private corporate entities, businesses, have gotten together to supply the potentially standing militia, not military, because there was no military when the Second Amendment was penned. People need to realize this. It was an all-volunteer, call them up, they are farmers and laborers style military, with some Hessian generals and stuff like that leading groups of partisans, essentially. And George, some rich landowners who had studied military tactics or had military experience just got together with a bunch of dudes that were half drunk who owned their own firearms and fired on their own government, by the way. They were under British governance at the time. Until they were successful, they were still British citizens, subjects, not really citizens per se. They also had a fondness towards pouring boiling tea down the throats of tax collectors. I'm sure that probably wasn't too pleasant. I think a lot of people probably died. They would also tar and feather them, slap hot tar on them, then put feathers all over them, like goose down, I guess. Those were considered great pastimes by the dissident population for some number of years, actually, thereafter as well. I'm sure that they didn't get along with the tax collector too much. And in fact, abolished most of the fees and taxes that existed at the time because they were burdensome and onerous. But yeah, keep telling me how we should have a disarmed population. This will make us so much safer. Foreign army invades, manages to circumvent our military, we'd kind of be screwed in that situation. Whereas with an armed populace, nobody's going to bother wasting their time. They don't want to lose tens of millions of soldiers. Their entire population, in most cases, that would be able to muster it all. The Russian military couldn't do anything. All of China could empty onto frigates and try to land in California, one of the most disarmed states. They'd still get cut to pieces. Ultimately, they would lose. That's the power of a civilian population that has armaments. As for topical defense, which, that was just sort of taken for granted at the time and doesn't have anything to do per se with the second, that's protected explicitly too anyway. Person has the right to defend their home, their property. It's not really their property if they're paying property taxes, but it's close enough. It's as close as we can get to it without abolishing all land-based taxes and literally making a man's home his castle. But that's not going to happen anytime soon unless you're in certain forward-thinking states. I think that should be expanded. Switch to a national sales tax or a consumption tax or something. Why don't we do that? People should be able to own the means of production explicitly, and they should also be able to save money, not be taxed over and over on the same holdings. It's just kind of it's a weird, arcane, dumb way of doing business. It kind of dates to the socialist era of FDR for the most part. It's kind of dumb. Now, the Broward County deputies failed entirely, but keep telling me how it probably would have been better. And I'm not really a proponent of this. I actually don't think it'd be a great idea. But in and of itself, it would have been more effective if a couple of teachers had been armed in this situation. They would have probably responded more able because the cop just flees. So nobody in the entire building could really fight back. You could take like a pencil, I guess, if you sneak up behind him while he's shooting and stab him in the neck. You probably sacrifice yourself. Maybe you save your classmates. Difficult to do that. All they could do is really try to hide, shelter. We're going to lock ourselves in this closet and hope that he can't blast his way through, basically. Manages to shoot us anyway. It's a scary situation when there's nobody to defend you now, isn't it? You're assuming that the school resource officer, he's going to come out with his gun and do a barrel roll and then pop him in the head or something. It'd be like James Bond movie. In real life, it doesn't happen that way. You don't even know that resource officer probably has never been in a scenario of violence of that magnitude, certainly, is going to actually do their job. I think I would rather rely on myself to be able to respond in any situation where I'm capable. Like if I'm in my home, I'm walking around in the woods, if I'm attacked by a bear, I'm not exactly going to call the cops and say, hey, a bear's attacking me. I'm up in this tree off of the path. Oh, where? Up a tree. There's a bear attacking me. Here, come shoot it or something. Yeah, that's not going to happen, dude. No, I think I'll at least be carrying a knife. I'm going to give myself a chance. Other people who don't feel comfortable with firearms or weapons at all, well, then don't own one. Be disarmed if you want to. Be a slave. That's about all. Peace out.